Welcome back to Breaking Down Storage Tech. Today we're breaking down a smart restock bulk storage by ners. Now this storage can store 1.8 million items, so let's get straight into it. So this is a really huge system, if you could see. There's three main parts. There's the actual bulk storage of it right here, or four main parts actually. You have the bulk storage of it right here where most of the items are kept. You have the sorter up here that sorts the items into the slice. Then you have a lot of the logic comes down to mostly this part. And then right here you have the Shulker box display. Now, starting all the way from the top. So basically, this is a Shulker box sorter. So it sorts an entire Shulker box at a time. And we've covered a few of these on the channel before, but this one's slightly different, uses the same principles though. So basically what happens is you use a splitter to take away one item out of a Shulker box. Let me see. Let me just come down here and take a Shulker box so I can explain this a little bit better. So basically what the system does is it takes out the first item of a Shulker box like so. And then you have the single item and then the Shulker box. And what it does is it shoves the Shulker box through this line right here, puts it in this dropper line, and shoots this powers this observer at the same time as this to shoot the item across all along this dropper line. Now, at the same time, with a little bit of time difference, the Shulker box is placed in this dropper right here, the Shulker box missing one item. And how this system works essentially is as it's getting shot along, you have a filter here, right here. And this is just a filter, so you put your item filter, sticks, whatever, and you have all your filler items. And basically what will happen is this item will travel along here until it reaches its filter and it'll get pulled down. And this will stop the signal because what's actually happening every time it crosses or it gets pushed along one of these is it powers the comparator, which powers through this piston by locking it. It powers this dropper, shooting it across alongside the Shulker box. So alongside the item. So as soon as the item gets pulled out, the signal no longer gets pushed and it stays in the dropper long enough to get pulled out by the hopper and shot into the dispenser right here. What then happens is because it got picked up as a signal from the dropper right here, it powers this block, extending this sticky piston, sending quite a few signals, but one signal here is to unlock this hopper right here because the redstone block will be moved down. The next thing will happen is it'll power this note block right here, which will power these two right here, which will power this block, powering this dispenser at the same time. We're powering this dispenser, so it shoots out the Shulker box. Now this is the same time as the items right here. So what will happen is this item will be right here, and it will get, or the item will go back into the Shulker box. So now you just have your full Shulker box staying right here. And because it's locked, no items will go into here. And what will happen lastly is this redstone block, when it gets placed here, it powers this redstone lamp right here, which powers this observer, which powers these two repeaters going through the specific timing, so it unlocks at just the right time for this hopper to get pulled out. What will also happen is once this unpowers, this repeater right here unpowers, allowing the item hopper to unlock and it can enter the full system. Now we skimmed over a few bits, and that's because skimmed over a bit because there's also a second signal when it powers through here. Oh wait, no, this is observing that. Which is why my brain went blank for a second. Basically what happens when this comparator also powers is that this comparator powers this block right here, which powers this dispenser right here, which shoots out a powdered snow into this block right here, which causes this observer to power, sending a signal down this activator rail to power these two observers, which will retract the snow again, and also power this redstone block just to make sure. Yeah, so just to make sure, double check everything, that it gets powered. And at the same time, it also powers this repeater, powering this note block right here. Also note that when this observer line, it does not actually power this note block for whatever reason. It only powers the dropper line underneath it, which is quite interesting. And what happens basically is it powers this note block, which gets observed by this observer, and then sends a signal down to this repeater line, powers this note block going into this observer, powering this, and then there's two main lines here. One line up here is to power this note block powering this observer right here, which will power this glass block right here, which actually won't conduct anything. And at the same time, it will also power this redstone lamp right here, which will power this observer to this observer, which will pulse this redstone right here, pulse this piston right here. And I actually think what will happen here is this observer will quasi-power this piston right here, which will also cause these two observers to fire, causing these two droppers to fire. Wait, we can actually test. Yeah, so this causes a second firing, which is for the dropper lines right here to shoot out the dropper and into this. And basically what happens is once it gets shot into this dropper right here, what will either happen is it'll get pulled down into this item hopper that'll be empty because the system is not in overflow mode. So it will go through the system as regular, and we'll explain what happens then in just a second. But what also might happen is if we're fully backed up right here and this item hopper can no longer take any items, what will happen is this dropper will stay in here at the same time that it's powered, or as the same time it's powered, so it will shoot the shulker box into this line right here, which is your overflow line. Yeah. So now getting into the bulk of the system. So what happens here is the item travels down and it gets stuck right about here, actually, in this chest right here. Okay, so basically what happens is when this signal starts powering, it will actually power this jack-o'-lantern right here, which will cross or over into powering this activator rail line right here, which will power all of this line. And the most important thing it does is it powers this line right here, which this observer will detect that. And that means that this white concrete right here will be powered, which will extend this trapdoor. Now, when this trapdoor is extended, it will extend and this wall will connect to it. This right here, this wall will connect to it, which actually causes a block update all the way down, and it basically updates the entire stack of walls. So it sends power to this observer here and this observer right here. Now what this does is it shoots up the item from down here up into this dropper right here. And this is one of the only, I guess you could call toggle states, but it's basically a counter to make sure that the system is done, and it uses a global reset. So what happens is you'd have to send a separate pulse when you're done using the system to power this observer line right here, which will basically shoot out all of the items that are up here. So once you use the system and a slice gets unlocked, that means that slice is permanently unlocked until the system shuts down, you could say, and this observer line's powered, and then the system goes back into locking mode. Now, what happens when this item is up here is this redstone comparator right here no longer is powering this piston, so this block moves up. Now, this prevents a lot of signals from getting sent to this line right here, and these all signals I'll talk about in a second, and those have to do with the smart restock logic for the double chest and the shulker loader. But basically you have to understand that there's power coming through this block regardless of what the situation is, and that's causing the system to be locked. And when it gets unlocked by this white concrete moving up, there's no signal to any longer power this redstone repeater, which will cause power in this block to go away, which sends two signals. One to this redstone torch so it can power again, unpowering this redstone torch, which will unpower this repeater, unlocking this hopper, unpower this hopper right here, and also unpower these sticky pistons. And we'll talk about what happens here in just a second. I just want to finish off the signal. The last, another thing that this unpowering of this block does is it causes all these repeaters to unpower. So it unpowers this barrel, so it unlocks these three hoppers right here. Now, finally getting into how the main bulk actually unlocks. So what'll happen is this will retract, and because it's a sticky piston, this glass will move with it, causing an observer update right here to pulse this piston right here to push all of this line up of glass, which will cause this composter to no longer be here and this comparator to no longer be on. So it'll unlock this hopper. That's the first step. The next step, it happens all the way up here once this gets pushed up, and this observer detects that there's now glass right here. So it powers this piston right here, pushing all of these down. So it'll push all of these down, and you'll notice that it's redstone block, then glass. And what that basically does is shifts all of the redstone blocks for being next to hoppers, locking them, to glass being next to all of the hoppers. So it's unlocked, allowing items to flow. Now this does this half of the hoppers. On the other half, what happens is when this gets moved down, this sticky piston is no longer powered by this redstone block. So it'll move down, which will cause this composter to move down, which will send this signal to unpowering this hopper right here, but at the same time unpowering this barrel, causing this shulker box, or not shulker box, note block to unpower, causing this piston to move up. So you'll notice that this, or once this piston moves up, there's not actually any movement here, and that comes to do with this right here. So basically when this composter moves, this white stained glass plane will no longer be attached to this composter. And what that means is it'll cause another block update, powering this observer right here, which will power this piston right here just to double check, which will also again lock this line right here by extending this piston, but it'll also push it down, push this white stained glass down again. But that's going to be important in just a second. But what happens is basically it repowers the entire system. So it will update this observer, flick this trapdoor again, and go through the same signal things. But the only difference now is that there's no power. This piston is actually now retracted, which means that when this system temporarily repowers to relock for just a second, this piston will actually get a pulse from this repeater, pushing all of these up, and then all of this line up here unlocks as we've just discussed. So it kind of unlocks, then relocks to get this to unlock because this piston is no longer powered, so the whole thing can unlock. A little bit confusing, but it makes the signal processing for the smart restock a ton easier. So now we can get into that system. So basically there is a couple main comparator readouts. There's the comparator readout for this shulker box loader, which is this here, to make sure that this shulker box always has items. I'm just going to clear my inventory and put this here. So this comparator is always taking a readout, making sure this piston's always extended. So this sand is always here. So this line is always extended right here. This means that this dropper right here contains an item, and you'll see in systems that's not are systems that are not have or don't have a shulker box right here, the item is in this upper box right here. So that means this comparator isn't taking a readout, or in this case with the dropper right here, the comparator is taking a readout, powering this rail line here, keeping this piston extended, preventing this comparator right here from ever taking a signal. So breaking it down from the box loader, so what will happen is this will, if this ever gets empty, this shulker or this comparator will unpower, and this sticky piston will pull up the sand temporarily, allowing this redstone repeater taking an output from this redstone block to no longer be powering this sand because it's now air. So it'll cause this to unpower, causing this to pull back, and this will send a temporary signal through this note block right here as the observer is getting moved. So it'll power this observer and power this line right here. Now, this is a little bit complicated, but basically what happens is first this dropper shoots its item into here because it gets powered first. So it shoots it into here. And what will happen then is it also powers this sticky piston right here to extend its block to right here, which will cause power to this repeater, powering this block, powering this sticky piston to extend this sticky piston right here where this air block is just under this powdered snow. And because it's there and the redstone block's right under it, it causes it to power, pushing the powdered snow into the white shulker box as a 0 tick, so the shulker box gets stuck in the powdered snow. Now, what happens in the next part of the signal is, because this no longer is taking a readout, this activated rail is no longer powered, so this sticky piston is retracted, allowing this comparator to read out from this composter, which will power this system again to make sure that the sticky piston's extended, as well as send 2 pulses, one up here and one up here. The main one up here causes a pulse through this dropper to extend this trapdoor and send a bunch of signals, but the main one is to update things, I think. But it causes this observer to update, and that pulses this dropper right here, which is, as you can see right here, it's getting watched by this dropper right here. So it pulses this to check that this sticky piston can extend, if it can or not. And if it does, it sends a signal and it powers this activator rail and does a bunch more signals. But what it also does is it powers this repeater right here to power this observer right here, powering this block, allowing this redstone torch to unpower, allowing these two hoppers to unlock, and also powering this repeater with a delay. So it'll allow one shulker box to come all the way through here and into this dispenser. And because of the delay, it'll power this block just as the item gets into this dispenser, and it powers this right here, or powers the dispenser, shooting out the shulker box once this whole system retracts, because of it's just a single pulse. So it'll get pushed here with a single pulse from here, and then the second pulse from this sticky piston coming all the way from here, from this redstone line, will bring the redstone block back, unpowering this repeater, so the whole thing just kind of slowly unpowers. So I think this is a really cool shulker box display system, because it's very self-preservant and doesn't require a lot of signal processing. It's a little bit slow, but it keeps the simplicity of it, so you only need one power to do the full cycle, which I think is really helpful in keeping the system compact. So now comes the behemoth of it all, the smart restocking. The smart restocking takes two major inputs: this chest right here from this comparator right here, and this hopper right here powering this comparator right here. So let me break this down as simply as I can imagine, let's say. So basically, when this chest is full of items, this emits a signal strength which gets powered and passed along, because a comparator copies the exact signal strength that's given. So if this is like half full and it'll be like a power of 7 or 8, this will power it with 7 or 8, which will power this with 7 or 8, which will power this with 7 or 8. And this will keep pulsing this dropper right here every time there's an update, which will pulse this system right here to just double check that this system is how it is. But the main thing it does is it has a comparator readout of 15, or the comparator readout of 15 from here, which comes from, 14 from here, which powers this with a signal strength of 14, coming from this procurement of items. And what that causes is this comparator to power this redstone dust here with a signal strength of 14. So until this chest is full, this dust right here is always 14, which causes none of these comparators to power, which causes all of these pistons to be retracted and all of these redstone torches to be unpowered, causing all of these torches to be unpowered, causing all of these repeater signals to be unpowered. And we'll talk about where these signals go in just a second. But yeah. But when it gets powered, this comparator finally takes a readout, so it powers this block, unpowering all of this stuff and sending a signal through here as you would want, and keeping this extended, so that way this observer can, or this system doesn't power, so this rail right here stays locked, or stays unlocked, sorry, and that this composter stays below here, so this comparator right here stays unpowered. How this actually works as logic is, if this comparator are powered, it keeps this piston stuck up. And by keeping this piston stuck up, it stops the whole second signal of this box loader from running. Because when this first signal happens, it just breaks the box. And then the second signal comes from this composter retracting, powering this composter or comparator, sending a bunch of signals to replace the box. But if there is a signal right here, it stops this comparator or the composter from retracting, stopping any signals dead in its tracks. So it leaves the snow block right here where the shulker box is, and it will just fall through eventually, because of the signal to the sticky piston isn't permanent, it's just a pulse. Now, however, if it is getting powered by a composter, or it isn't getting powered by a composter, the composter is down here, it doesn't get a power, it allows the system or the composter to retract and fire all the signals it does to replace the box. So that's the box processing done, because what this essentially means is that it will replace the box if it knows it has items in here. But if it doesn't have any items in here, it won't replace the box. Self-explanatory. Now, the second part of this signal right here is powering this block right here. Now, what this does by powering this block right here is it keeps the system locked. So if this chest right here, or this chest right here, doesn't have power, it keeps the system, or all of these repeaters, as you can see, unpowered. But it's all about this block right here. It acts as an AND gate. And to get it a little bit better, and we're going to backtrack a little bit to check into this hopper signal. So this signal right here is taking out from here, and if it has any items whatsoever, this comparator will take a readout and power this, unpowering this redstone torch. This sends a second signal into this white concrete, and this is where this white concrete acts as kind of an AND gate, and it makes more sense to break it down by situations. Basically, if this system is full, if this box is full, and this is also, and this is full as well, there is a signal powering this block, keeping the system locked. But if this is empty, this is still powered, and this is also powered, so the system stays locked. And the other case where this stays locked is this chest is empty, and this item, or this extra item hopper, is also empty, so this torch stays on, so the system stays locked. The only case where this unlocks is that the chest is empty, so there's no signal coming out from here, so this block is unpowered, and there's items in this hopper, which causes this redstone torch to unpower, so this block no longer has any signal going through it, so it unpowers this repeater and goes through the whole unlocking system as we've previously talked about. So that's how it actually smart restocks, and that's overall the logic of the system. It's kind of crazy and very compact, and a lot of signal processing coming along or going through it, but overall really great system. I really like these box loaders right here because of how self-contained they are. It only really takes this little part of it right here, and this is more signal processing stuff. And at the same time, I also really like the use of this piston extension as an AND gate, because it's essentially a three-way AND gate. So it checks that there is, or an AND OR gate, I guess you could say, but it really is an AND gate, and then this part right here has a NOT gate on it. So basically, it checks that there's any inputs whatsoever. So if this is getting power, then this stays available, and the signal can go through for it to remain locked. If this is getting power, or if this chest is full, the system stays locked, and if this is empty or unlocked, or empty or full, it stays locked as long as there's items in here. If there's no items in here, it causes the whole system to unlock. And also, if you get items through the thing, it causes the whole system to unlock. So I think it's a really cool use, and the amount of power this singular piston right here has right here in the system, I think is quite impressive. But yeah, final thoughts on the system are the UI is really clean, and it's a little bit wide, but I kind of like my storage systems to be wider. It has the soul soil, so you can go across it super fast, and it's a really clean box loader as well. Now, the last thing to note is if you have to start up the system, it doesn't have any in buffer, but it does need a startup, so it gets this sticky piston powered, and all of the system to run once to power the hopper, and that is really easily done because all of the note blocks here these are how you start up the system, and you could just run a really easy redstone line through all of these and just a single button press, and you would double check all of the things to load into your system. So that makes it really convenient. So overall, a really great system. And yeah, thank you for watching.